Trudeau. Brett. Trudeau. Right? Call to order the Scott County Board of Adjustment. First thing on the agenda is roll call and introductions. I'll start with roll call. Donna Henches.
Here.
Ed Robbie. Here. Ray Huber here. Barb Johnson.
Here.
Lee Watson. Here. And Gary Hartman and Tom Bonhoff are absent with notice. I also want to introduce our assisting staff here. Brad Davis, our planning manager. Greg Wagner, principal planner. Marty Schmidt, zoning administrator. Nathan Hall, associate planner. And Barb Simonson, our deputy clerk. Along with, I want to say Tom Wolf is our county commissioner. There's Tom. Seen him there earlier. Okay, what's that? You mentioned Greg? That's not too great. Oh, okay. I'm just checking. Might as well check. Next thing on the agenda is approval of November 8th, 2021 minutes. Has everybody reviewed them? Any edits or changes to the minutes? Do I have a motion? Make a motion, we approve the minutes of the last meeting. Have a second?
Second. I'll abstain.
Okay. Two abstentions and, for approval of the 2021 minutes. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. None in favor, say nay. The minutes have been approved. The next thing on the agenda is request for variance for 20-foot accessory building height requirement to 26.5 feet. It's FLAA variance number PL-2021-105, located in Section 17, Cedar Lake Township, RR1C. And Nathan, you're going to give us the report on it?
Correct, Mr. Chair. Good evening, Commissioners. The subject property is located in Section 17 of Cedar Lake Township at the northern end of the Hills of St. Patrick subdivision. The 2.5-acre subject parcel has an existing home roughly centered on the property. The home has an attached garage, but there's not an existing detached garage. The area around the home generally slopes towards wetland in the northeast of the parcel, and the property is unique that it has roadway frontage on 3 sides. It is accessed from Churchview Circle. The applicant is requesting a 6.5-foot variance to increase the maximum accessory building height from 20 feet to 26.5 feet in order to construct an accessory building with a 2,500 square foot footprint. The applicant states that they are proposing the building at 26.5 feet to allow for an automotive lift to be placed in the building while still accommodating a ceiling height of 8 feet on the second level. The applicant has stated that the automotive lift would not be used for commercial purposes, but full explanation of the area identified as a salon on the floor plan has not been clarified. Due to the size of the property, the owner is not eligible to have a home extended business at the property in the accessory building, but they would be eligible to apply for a home occupation within the home itself. Accessory dwelling units are prohibited on lots less than 10 acres in the RR1C. Accessory buildings cannot be used for sleeping quarters, but we often do see buildings that have workshops, sheds, man caves, home offices, and that sort of thing in the maximum accessory building footprint on a 2.5-acre property is 3,000 square feet, which is being met by this proposal, and the maximum height is 20 feet. The maximum height allowed on a 2.5-acre property increased from 18 feet back in to 20 feet, and that change happened with the ordinance update in August 2020. The definition of the building height is taken from the highest adjoining ground level to the average height of the gable. While it appears that there may be challenges for the applicant with packaging the structure to accommodate additional recreational space directly above an area that would accommodate an automotive lift, it is conceivable the applicant could place recreational space, additional area on the ground level, since they're not up to the 3,000 maximum yet, create a 1.5-story design, have an area above the automotive lift that does not have living space there, only above part of it. It's conceivable that there could be some way to alleviate this issue without the need for a variance. And that's staff's view of that. The applicant has stated there are multiple accessory buildings in the area that exceed the height requirement of 20 feet, including the garage immediately adjacent to this property, and others throughout the subdivision. We did pull the plans for the 3 of the largest accessory buildings in the northern area of the Hills of St. Patrick, and found that they were proposed between 15 feet and 18 feet. And regarding the immediately adjacent structure, the building plans are no longer on file for that one. They're only required to be kept for a certain amount of time. But we did drive by and take this photograph there, and that was included in the Commissioner's staff reports. Scott County Environmental Services has reviewed the request and does not oppose the variance, but has requested additional information about the use of the building. They have a concern about the impact of potential uses on the septic system, so they'd like to have more information to review there. Scott County Building Department has noted there would not be an issue regarding the building code for the height of the structure, but has noted that the structure would need to be designed and built in accordance with all relevant codes. Cedar Lake Township has not clarified if they would review the request, but they have stated in the past that recommendations will not be made by the town board regarding zoning issues. And Scott County staff is not supportive of the request of the variance based on the 8 criteria for granting a variance. It was listed in the staff report, and staff is recommending denial of the request. We go through some of that criteria in more detail, and also stand by for any questions. We do have the applicants here tonight.
Any questions from this board for Nathan or the applicant?
I have a question for the applicant.
What?
The applicant here?
The applicant here? You go up, state your name, and you go up to sign in.
Hi there, my name is Michael Flaw, and this is my wife, Lindsay.
Sign in.
Sorry.
First time. Sorry. Just one question. What are you gonna do with this building? What's it for?
So primarily, so obviously we're living more rural. We have a lot of equipment, whether it be lawn care, 4-wheelers, snowmobiles, things of that nature. So storage for stuff like that, trailers. You know, we want to keep our yard looking as clean as possible, keep everything inside. I've been working in the automotive industry my whole life, so I've always wanted a automotive shop kind of at home for that kind of thing. And then as far as the space above, more or less a rec space for our kids. Minnesota gets super, super cold, and with them being kind of locked inside all night, we really wanted a space above so those guys can kind of run rampant and get some exercise without having to be out bitter cold.
Chairman, I have a question. Okay, go ahead. Michael, is it imperative that you have to have 26.5 feet? Could you get by with the 20?
So we've tried. We've gone through this we've actually worked with multiple different builders, trying to get the height of the structure down as much as possible. So the building code requires us to have a 30-inch truss to span the weight of the second level. So you have 30 inches that gets eaten up by the truss itself, 12 foot to clear the automotive hoist, and then a standard 8-foot ceiling height, and then the roof over the top of that. What we have done, and I don't think that was submitted, I don't know if you guys want to take a quick look at this. So the structure that is immediately adjacent to us is 24 feet. We actually went up, measured it from the gable end to the floor, and it's 24 feet. So when you are looking at the building from the road, our building would only be 2.5 foot over the top of the neighbor's building. So what we did is we actually hipped, in the design, we hipped the roof to try to reduce the overall expansion that would, be above, that 24-foot height of the building that's directly next door. And we've experimented with trying to kind of expand the footprint so we wouldn't have to go taller, but we have setbacks from the road, we have setbacks from our neighbor, and then our septic system, when the builder built, they actually moved our septic over so we could go back further into the septic system, and then the house is on the other side, so we're kind of boxed in on all four sides.
So Chairman, so you're saying, Michael, that based on the red portion of this, elevation, from the top of that red area down to the ground level, did you say it would be more like 24?
So the blue line is basically the space that the neighbor's building occupies at that 24-foot level.
Okay.
We would be at that 26, so only that little band in the center would be above
The red
that
portion.
of the neighbor's structure.
Let me ask you, if board declines this, what would be your options?
We gotta get this project done somehow, so it'd just be back to the drawing board to try and, to come up with something that would try to check all of the boxes again. But it's kind of obviously a struggle with what we're trying to do. We've kind of looked at it from every angle, trying to, get that height down as much as possible, but it's been super challenging.
If you eliminated the salon and just had your list that you wanted to have and didn't have to wait for the salon, would that?
So, I wanted to speak to the salon. I don't know if, as far as, if anyone in here has built a new home or anything like that. After you live in the home for even 30 days, you look around and you go, oh, I would have changed that, a million things. So the salon, it was just, so right now my wife owns a salon in Northfield. It's like a 6-chair salon. It's a full operational business. If down the road she decided to close that down and just wanted to do hair out of the house, that's why we put that space in there. That space isn't even gonna be finished. It's basically gonna be just a concrete. We were just trying to think of anything further down the road that we weren't gonna kick ourselves forward for, oh, shoot, we should have done that when we had the chance. So, that's the salon portion of it isn't a make or break. It's just
But if it was eliminated, would it bring the height down?
it would not, no, because the proposed salon was on the main level.
Lee, did you put?
A question for Mr. Hall. Do we have any applications other than this one to, request a change from our normal standard 20 feet to 20, beyond 20 feet?
Here's where the microphone can pick me up. Mr. Chair, Commissioner Watson, the only request, height variance request that staff could think of here was in the industrial district. And so there hasn't been any other residential height variance request.
I have a question for the applicant. Reason for a lot of the height is for the lift, right?
For the main level, correct.
Can you build something, a structure, where the lift's a separate area, so you don't have to be so high, and bring it down?
So we've experimented a little bit with doing something like that. So, that's more of an example of,
What it looks like or what it
right.
could look like?
So doing a split side kind of thing where you have only a portion of it, lifted, it's something that's possible, but when you only lift a certain section, you have to have support pillars in the center, and it kind of ruins the big open space.
Or you might have a wall there or something like that to separate the lift from the rest of the...
Right, just to support everything above.
Yeah.
As far as the structure goes, it was kind of our initial concept, and we've kind of spoken to our neighborhood in that, of, the two different options. So that's kind of the conceptual art of what the plan's based around. So we want to make sure that it was aesthetically, pleasing to everyone who's looking at it, and it wasn't just a conventional, full frame.
I would think that you could sit with the designer and figure a way to get this down close to the height requirement. I built some outbuildings, same thing, where I use 12-foot high walls, started up the upper level at 4 foot and went up from there, so I was kinda tight on the edge of the building, but you could get it to work.
Right,
So I
that's,
think there's ways around it, you can work with the designers on that. Then separate, the lift area from the rest of the structure, so you not have to go so high. I would think you could do that. Any other questions?
Question for Mr. Blah, is this a concept, or
concept
this
design.
is what the building would look like as you,
No, that was like the other option of
The
what a
option?
traditional building would look like, and then
so the
what
ones
we were,
attached to our worksheet here are what,
that's the actual
That's
building,
the actual-
correct.
Mm.
Mr. Chair, I've got a question for Nathan.
Okay.
I see that, notices were sent to property owners within 500 feet. Did we receive any yeas or nays or any oppositions to the notices?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Robbie, I've only received one phone call, and they weren't positive, but they did not submit any official comments, they did not submit any written comments, and I've not received any other emails or calls or,
Thank you.
It's a public hearing, is anybody that's in the audience there? A
Oh.
neighbor that wanted?
I'll call the public here. Any other questions for applicant or Nathan at this time?
Mr. Chair?
Go ahead.
One criteria is there has to be a hardship. What do you consider a hardship?
Just in the project in general, we have gone through, this is our second builder. We had another builder kind of drag us along for 10 months. And we ended up not getting our deposit back, which delayed the project. We have other projects at home that kind of hinge on the completion of this. Our driveway, for example, we've been unable to finish our driveway because we have to modify it to kind of go off to the outbuilding. So we are still with the Class 5 driveway, dragging mud through, that kind of thing. So it's just been a hard road thus far. So.
Any other questions for the applicant or? No. This is a public hearing. Anybody like to address the board regarding this variance? Approach the podium.
Michael, you want your elevations back? Thank you for providing those.
Yeah. There's no one, do I have a motion to close the public hearing?
so moved.
I'll second.
I have a motion, second to close the public hearing. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Non-favor say nay. Public hearing is closed, and your wishes on this variance, please.
Mr. Chairman, based on the 8 hardship criteria for granting a variance, I recommend denial of the request for a 6.5-foot variance from the 20-foot accessory building height requirement to 26.5, and also noting Cedar Lake Township made no recommendation.
Second on this motion. Motion second for denial. All in favor say aye. Aye. Non-favor say nay.
Nay.
One nay. 4 ayes. The request for variance is denied. Anything else from the, okay, turn it over to the planning commission.
I call the Scott County Planning Advisory Commission to order. The first item is roll call. Donna Hentges. Here. Ed Robbie.
Here.
Ray Huber.
Here.
Lee Watson.
Here.
Barbara Johnson here. And again, our staff is Brad Davis, Marty Smith, Greg Wagner, Nathan Hall, and Barb Simonson, our recording secretary, and Tom Wolf, our county commissioner. The next item is approval of the November 8th, 2021 minutes. Is there a motion? They've been read. Any change? If not, a motion will be in order to approve.
Madam Chair, I move we approve the November 8th minutes.
Second.
Been moved by Mr. Huber, second by Mr. Robbie to approve the minutes. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
I will abstain. I will abstain. The next item is called the consent agenda. All items listed are considered by the Planning Commission to be routine and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a Planning Commission board member or a public member so requests, in which event the item will be removed from the consent agenda to be considered separately. There is just one, and it's 2 items. It's a public hearing at Evanhoe Rezone Preliminary and Final Plat, and it's PL number 2021-104. The first A is a request for rezoning 20 acres from RR1 Rural Residential Reserve District, RR2 Rural Residential Single Family District. The second portion, B, is a request for preliminary plat and final plat of Evanhoe acres consisting of 2 lots on 20 acres. Location is in Section 14, Spring Lake Township, current zoning RR1. Does anybody on this board wish to have this item removed? Anybody from the audience would like to have this removed and discussed? Township is here. Did you have anything to comment? No, we're good. Okay. Motion would be in order to approve the consent agenda.
We can approve the consent agenda.
Okay.
Second it.
Been moved by Mr. Watson, second by Mr. Huber to approve the consent agenda. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. And, Evanhoe rezone is approved. The next item is a public hearing, Buffalo Ridge, 3rd edition, number 2021050. It's a request for preliminary plat of Buffalo Ridge, 3rd edition, consisting of 19 lots and 1 outlot on 104.42 acres in Section 36, Spring Lake Township, zoned RR2. And Mr. Wagner will review this for us.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, on the screen is the site location map of the subject property, as you indicated in Section 36, Spring Lake Township. For locational purposes, the property is located to the north of County Road 8, to the northeast of McMahon Lake, and it's located along Flag Trail, which borders it on the east side. Just to note, the dark gray line here does indicate the township border with the now city of Credit River. So this flag trail in this location is a shared road. We'll be probably talking about that through this presentation, but just noting that Credit River is right to the east. I just want to point out then also to the north, there are some lots here along Raven Point Road that were developed as part of the Buffalo Ridge First Edition, and then additional lots on the south side of that same road that were platted as part of the Second Edition. This is an aerial photo then of the subject property, so you can see kind of the existing development in the area. Yep. Okay, so the Raven Point Road, again to the north, with the Buffalo Ridge First Edition. That was in 2001. The Second Edition, I believe, was in 2015. And now the remainder of the property is what the applicants are proposing to create tonight. As you indicated, the request is for preliminary plat of the Third Edition, consisting of 19 lots and 1 outlot on 104.42 acres. So on the screen here is the preliminary plat proposal that was presented in your packet. The application proposes to create the 19 lots by creating a new local township road that would come off of Raven Point Road, wind through the property, and then connect out to Flag Trail. So this would be a new paved township road. All 19 lots in the development shown here would then have access off of that road. All right. So the public hearing was sent out to residents within a half mile of the project, and the main concerns from some of the neighboring residents were regarding the development, wetlands, and then how this how this works when it comes to stormwater and septic. So what you see on the screen here is kind of the site overview. Again, to the southwest here we have McMahon Lake. The area in the hash, is what's mapped as hydric soil. There is a wetland, down here, as well as a couple pocket wetlands that were, one here and one here, that were in the middle of the site. But the hash area is hydric soil, which is differentiated from wetland area. A wetland is delineated, and then reviewed under WACA by the DNR, to confirm the boundaries. The hydric soil is just soil on the property, that is prone to being wet either seasonally or its drainage ways. So the main concern with hydric soil is that you can't put septics in it. As I flip over to, this is the grading plan. So as you can see on the property, the developer is required to prove that each lot is buildable. So what we see is a 5,000 square foot proposed house pad that we review to make sure that it meets required setbacks. And then each lot has two 5,000 square foot, septic sites. But the septic sites cannot be located in hydric soil. So that hydric area is, again, this area through here, so the septics are shown outside of that. And those have been reviewed. There are some comments that were provided by environmental services regarding a couple of septic sites that need to be adjusted, but environmental services did do field work with the applicant and their engineer and septic evaluator, so we're confident that those will be resolved. The other aspect of development is when we have new impervious surface, such as the road and the house and the driveway areas, that those areas will generate new stormwater runoff. So the applicant and their engineer work with county regulations to develop a stormwater management plan that has to control that stormwater for rate and volume. Typically, they will do that by inserting some infiltration areas, which allows that stormwater to infiltrate into the ground off-site or on-site, and then stormwater facilities, stormwater ponds. So there is a infiltration area here. Sorry, when I click. So there's an infiltration area basin here, and then one up further to the north. There was another one with the second addition that is up off of Raven Point Road when that went in. So those stormwater facilities, to some of the resident questions, those are designed to capture that water, so that water is allowed to infiltrate on site. It doesn't run off the site. It doesn't cause any issues with McMahon Lake as far as runoff goes. Then this is the southern part of the site again. There was one issue that we noted in the packet. So this was sent out to adjacent agencies for review. The Minnesota Department of Natural Resources, because this is adjacent to a protected water, there are shoreline standards that must be met. One of the shoreline standards is that along the high water level for the lake, which is kind of the boundary you see here, the lots that abut the lake must be 200 feet wide. So the initial proposal that came in did not meet the 200-foot lot width for some of these lots that were abutting McMahon Lake here. This drawing here has since been revised, this is the revised drawing that now shows those lots meeting the 200-foot lot width. We submitted this to the DNR, and they acknowledged that those lot width standards have been met. In addition to the lot width, because it's a natural environment lake, all structures and septic sites must be 150 feet from the ordinary high water level of the lake. And as proposed, all of those septic sites and structures meet the required setback. The developer who is here tonight with their project team did meet back in November with the Spring Lake Town Board. The town board did review the plat and did recommend approval of the plat. The board recommended approval, noting that this development will require a development agreement. Typically, a development agreement is put together by the township attorney. So the township attorney would be drafting a development agreement, that would be required prior to final plat. So the township attorney will be doing that. I also reached out to the township engineer, who has reviewed this project, and he had no concerns with the proposal, that's before you tonight. I would stand for any questions. I do want to note the project team from Moderno is here along with their engineer. Ted Kowalski is here from Spring Lake Township if you have any questions, for the township as well.
Madam Chair, I have a question for Greg. Could you go back to that, plan that shows the hydric soil? That one there.
Yep.
When I look at the aerial photograph, a lot of the hydric soil's down on the edge, looks like open water.
Yep.
So, I mean, I guess I get a little confused with hydric soils. It sounds like it's kind of wet soils and that, but here you got actually open water.
Yeah, so this
See it right there.
Yep, this is a little better, hydric layer.
So that could be either way, shallow wetland, or, wet soils.
Correct.
Basically.
Yep.
Okay, so it could be both. Okay.
Yeah. Yes, how do they say it? Not all wetlands are in hydric soil, but not all hydric soils in wetlands, so, yeah.
Okay, fair enough.
Having grown up just down the road, we always called it Carl's Lake. So it takes me kind of by surprise that it's McMahon Lake. Is there two names for it? Is it always, what happened?
I've heard people call it Carl's McMahon Lake, so I've heard.
All right.
Chairman, Mr. Wagner, we got the joint powers agreement between the city of Credit River and Spring Lake Township taken care of?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Watson, I think I'll have Ted maybe get up and speak to that.
If you'd like to sign in and state your name, please.
I'm Ted Kowalski, Spring Lake Township, Commissioners. To your question, no, we haven't yet. We've briefly talked about it. We're not opposed to it necessarily. We have our attorney looking at it, Peter Teedy. He's never seen one where a joint powers agreement doesn't address a kind of a common road. We're talking about a road that's completely in Credit River Township. So we're looking at that. I can't speak for the whole board, but the discussions we have is, I don't think we're against it.
Okay.
It seems reasonable,
Yeah.
but there's more issues here. As you go east on Flag Trail, right away, it becomes Credit River Township. As you go south on Flag Trail, that's ours, but the county's told us for a long time that they want to close Flag Trail at County Road 8. Okay, so maybe we sign a joint powers agreement with Credit River when the other access closes. Because it's only, if we have our own access to a bigger roadway, to a county road, not everybody would be going and winding through Credit River. So we'll work that out with them. We have a good relationship with Credit River. There's just some T's to cross and I's to dot on that and get information from the attorney.
We're comfortable with the access on the 27 then, when that's all is completed?
Yeah, that would go to 27, correct. But the long-term plan is a little more complicated than that, because what also happens here is, talking with the County Highway Department, talking with Shane Nelson, the engineer for Credit River Township, our engineer, the plan is, as Bonnie Tice develops to the east of Buffalo Ridge, that's that property there, the roads will realign and eventually take traffic out through Harvest Hills, out to County Road 8, and there's a turn lane and bypass lane there, really good sight lines. So when that can happen, probably makes pretty good sense to eliminate Flag at 8. But maybe Flag at 8 shouldn't get eliminated until Bonnie Tice develops, because think of the people in Buffalo Ridge that gotta wind all the way up through Credit River to get back there. The other thing that's hard about Flag Trail, we've given this a lot of thought, is along Flag Trail in Credit River, there isn't very many property owners. So paving that, there's nobody to assess for it. Those big property owners, how do you show a value on a 429? So it's complicated on how to get that done. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair, I've got a question for you. What's your first name again?
Ted.
Ted. just playing the devil's advocate, if, let's say, the city of Credit River, has a change of heart here, how does the board feel about any issue of that sort coming to
If
play?
they had a change of heart where they decided they didn't
Where
want
they
to join
decided
powers?
not to share any road, improvements?
Yeah, if they don't want to, we'd be okay with it. What we're actually would be allowing them to do in the joint powers agreement is we would be assessing our property owners and handing the money over to them.
Okay,
You know what I mean? If there's only one way in, we have this already up in Lakes Estates where there's a couple properties that have to go, the only way out of their property is through Credit River. In other words, they're kind of landlocked in on Credit River property, and Credit River has no way to assess them because they're not their governing body. So they've worked out an agreement with us to assess, we'll assess those people what Credit River says and then hand the money over. This would be the same way. So if they change their mind, that would be detrimental to Credit River,
okay,
long term.
thank you.
Any other questions from this board? This is a public hearing. If you would care to speak, please, come to the podium, and we ask that you state your name and sign in.
John Stevenson. We were part of the Harvest Hills development, phase one. We were, I think, the second property developed there, so.
What was your last name?
Stevenson? Stephenson.
You're in the first phase of?
Phase one, correct. Up on the circle. So echoing the stuff that had discussed regarding that 1 mile section of flagged trail, that has been a mess for a long time. That road is continually washboarded. It's a hazard right now. And I know there's been a lot of challenges because it's sort of this weird joint ownership thing. I think, I have a couple of concerns here. The first is I'm not really clear why exactly they want to shut down that, feeder from 8. My understanding is that it's some concerns about sight lines, but in driving that thing for 15 years every day, I've really never seen a problem with it. There was some brush on the other side that they did clear, but that helped, but yeah. I'm still perplexed as to what the big deal is there. I agree that that shouldn't be closed down until there's other ways in. Closing that down early would make getting in and out of the area a lot more difficult. But yeah, that's kind of some thoughts there. I would really love to see it paved as part of this. I am concerned with adding another 19 households, just how much more wear and tear we're gonna see on that road, since it's already a problem. Other comments would be, as part of the development, one of the nice things about this area is it's dark. You can, on particular nights, actually see a little bit of the Milky Way, which is cool. So I guess one of my requests would be, as part of the building in this area, is can we ensure that the lighting is dark sky friendly? So in other words, these are gonna be mostly like down firing cans and not things that are like traditional lanterns that blow light sideways, because those typically just erase the sky. Similarly, large security lights on poles, maybe make those, not allowed. Those are the major things that I think I'm concerned about right now. So, questions, comments from me?
Are all the ones in your neighborhood the lighting that you would like?
No, there are a few. There is a couple places that do have the lantern style lighting, and they do really just blow an unbelievable light sideways, and that does basically erase the sky.
Well, the developer's here, so I'm sure he noted your comment.
Yep.
Questions for Mr. Stevenson? Okay,
Thank
thank you. Would the developer like to make any comments?
Good evening. My name is Ashley Tupi Rickert, and I am,
Speak up a little bit more.
I'm sorry?
Speak up a little more.
Oh, you bet.
You're not at church here.
My name is Ashley Tupi Rickert, and I am with Modernal Homes, and I am here to represent the seller. The seller is Stephen Geis. We had great success in developing the second phase of Buffalo Ridge second edition. And as we approach this third edition, done my due diligence in serving him and understanding his wishes and how he sees this portion of his property, his family trust, go into the next phase. We are proposing changing the name from Buffalo Third Edition to Scenic Bay Estates. Being that we have water on the property, we feel that it would be beneficial to that property to have some changes to the covenants and just set that addition apart a little bit. So I would propose changing that name to Scenic Bay Estates, as well as the road that comes through that development to be named in honor of his mother, Dorothy. That I would try to get his approval on that this evening. So we would propose to name that Dorothy Lane. More than anything, I just wanted to come up here and introduce myself as a representative of the property and take any questions that anyone has. But again, my name is Ashley, and I am here for questions.
And you do have covenants?
We are working through covenants in place. Yes.
Now, you heard
unrecorded.
Mr. Stevenson talk about lighting. Is that considered maybe to do some covenants that lighting would have to be?
Certainly something to be considered. I appreciate that being brought up. I don't know that lighting is specifically called out in the covenants. So I'll take a closer look at that and verify.
Okay. Any questions for Ashley? Any audience have any questions for Ashley?
Well, so if you're talking about...
Oh, they have to come up front, put your name and sign in.
I'm Brad DeRucci. We own the 30 acres just east on Flag.
Do you wanna,
I'll
state
sign
your name
in.
again? Brad Evershay?
Yep.
Okay.
So, yeah, that's our property right there.
Okay.
So, I guess the lighting, the only thing that would bother anyone in the area would be the sport courts.
Pardon me?
The sport court lights are the ones that are really bad. So, everything else is probably okay. Like east of us, there's some sport courts, and they really can put out a lot of light. There's one there, and there's another one across the street. So,
Some tennis.
I mean, it's not that big a deal to us, but they're above us, so I don't, it'll change that whole area, I suppose, if there's a lot of sport courts up there. But I guess if I owned the property and wanted a sport court, I'd probably put it in. So, otherwise, I don't really, nothing's gonna change on the road. It's gonna happen, whatever happens, happens. So, I'm pro gravel and I'm pro pavement. The gravel slows people down, although they go lightning fast. If we do pavement in the future, it would be nice if we could throw some speed bumps in there. If not, I'm gonna put something out there anyway.
Well, the snowplowers don't like that too much.
No, exactly. Otherwise, that's about it. Sport courts, I suppose, would be the only lighting problem.
That's fair. The woods may help.
It might. It is up high though, so it's gonna look like Mystic Lake, I suppose. Pardon me? That'd be good. All right, anything else? Anyone have questions for me?
For Mr. Evershay?
Okay,
Thank you. Go ahead, come on.
Good evening. Gary Tupi, working with the Moderno team. This is actually Ashley's Plat, her first debut. I promise to sit back and not say anything.
Well, so much for that.
But here we go, Ted knows, right? So I know, just something that, needs to be addressed is, talking to all the neighbors that we built for many years ago and some even more recently, the big concern, of course, is the flag trail connection. I think most of the neighbors there are supportive of the project. We even have several neighbors that call to rebuild and upgrade their house. So I just want the board to know, and the neighbors that are here concerned, that we've had conversations with Spring Lake Town Board and Credit River Town Board. We are in favor of the upgrade, whatever that is, whatever the township feels is right, we are gonna participate. We did a similar project this year on Terra Farms over in Credit River, where the 210th Street upgrade and Nevada upgrade, and that was a shared between residents who had some benefit, the development benefited, the township was relieved of some maintenance expense, and everybody kind of put in the stone soup, and it worked out beautiful, and it's been a great project. So I'm hoping this works something similar. Talking with Shane over at the City of Credit River, he thought maybe in January we could just do a sit down and kind of throw everything on the table and see what that looks like. From our selfish standpoint, of course, the lots for Mr. Geis have more value without dust and mud. So we would try to work with the township to get some kind of a Band-Aid on that road that maybe the residents would appreciate sooner than later. But I appreciate what Ted's saying. It's a complicated issue, but we will be there spearheading with the neighbors to make the upgrade. The town board had reacted to us and said it's not a condition of the plat, so it didn't really become part of their recommendation. But just so the board knows that we are actively involved in the conversation to move the ball forward to make the residents happy with that upgrade.
Do you see any problems with construction equipment going in on Flag Trail and?
We've talked about that. I think it would be smart if we would just sign the construction traffic to come off 8 and Flag, which is a higher section of road. There's way less frost boils in that section of road. I think we could maintain that piece a lot better, and that would be a lot less problems with the majority of the neighbors who come out Flag and go back to 27. We could certainly maintain that much better for sure.
And then in the spring, of course, it'd have road restrictions.
Yes, it'd be posted 5-ton anyway in the spring, right?
Questions for Gary?
Thank you for your time.
Any other comments from the public? Noting none. Oh, sorry.
Good evening. My name is James Suseg. My wife and I live on Raven Point Road on the second lot to the north as you come off Flag Trail in Raven Point. So when we built, Ted and Gary built our home in 2004, so we've lived there for 17 years. And when I got the notice for the meeting tonight, the first thing I did was text Gary. And Gary and Ted and I have had this conversation repeatedly since 2004. You see that map right there, how the comment was made that they want to connect from Flag Trail through the Tice Farm over there. And I've been waiting for that for 17 years. And I can't wait any longer. This road is a disaster, and I'm talking about Flag Trail. It is a disaster. It is muddy, dusty, poor sight lines, terrible ditches. It is not made for this level of traffic. When my wife and I moved in, we had the homes on the north side of Raven Point. There's been additional homes built down on the cul-de-sac, and then the last couple of years, they built the additional homes on the south side of Raven Point. Simply put, this road cannot handle, without being paved, and without some ditch improvements and some other improvements, the volume of traffic that's going to go into this development. It's just that simple. Somebody's going to die on this road if it's not paved. And I'm not trying to say something that I haven't experienced for 17 years. I've got 4 teenage drivers. It is every day you go out there and there's near misses and all the rest of it. We can't wait for Bonnie Tice to sell or do whatever she's going to do. We've waited 17 years. It can't wait any longer. If the pavement has to be ripped up someday so that the road can go through Bonnie Tice's farm, so be it. And hear me loud and clear. You can assess me for this, okay? So I'm the last person that would probably ever say that, but I'm telling you, I will gladly be assessed to have the Flag Trail paved. If you're going to add 19 lots to that, it's just not going to work. It doesn't work now, but it's for sure not going to work with an additional 19 lots. And like I said, we can't wait for the the Tice Farm, whatever it's going to do, eventually. And, you know, off of 8 there, that's a tough corner. You know, think about when it snows or when it's slippery, but it doesn't really matter. It's a tough corner from a sightline perspective, from a, you know, your car headlights and how they're moving relative to the corner. So, and I know that's not before you, but when you're thinking about approving this, I think it's gotta be, and I'm hearing Ted loud and clear, I'm hearing Gary loud and clear. And by the way, these guys build great homes. I've lived in our house for 17 years, got nothing but good things to say about both these guys and the homes they built. And Ted's built homes, newer homes down the block, Gary's built newer homes down the block. So nothing but good things to say about both of them. But the road has gotta be addressed in order to handle, it doesn't handle the volume that's there now, and it really needs to be addressed. And like I said, go ahead and assess me for it. I have a good friend that lives off 210th Street that Gary mentioned in Credit River, and he said it's been life-changing. Those were his words, to have that road paved. And he was assessed for it, but he lives in a cul-de-sac down there, so they had, and theirs is a straight, if you know what I'm talking about, that comes off 27, and it's a straight road down to the cul-de-sac. This is not a straight road, as you can see. You have 2 tough curves on that section, and then the one off 8. So you have the curve, the pavement ends right there. Then you have one curve, and then you have another curve. Then you have the bad turn off of 8. And so it really needs to be addressed. I'm going to assume that Gary and Ted are going to follow through with that here in January. And we talked about the plan of doing so. So I just want to make those comments here this evening. Thank you.
The road was bad when I rode that on school bus.
Yeah, it's, well, I knew it was bad the first winter I was there when somebody's Hummer was in the ditch. You ever seen a Hummer in a ditch before? I hadn't. I'd take a picture of it, because, those are meant for all road, off-road everything, and there it was in the ditch. So, all right, thank you.
Thank you. Sure, go ahead.
To follow up on what Jim's comments were, just to make it clear. Jim, I don't build anything anymore. I'm not part of Woodfitter, I'm not part of Moderno. I am not part of any of that. Okay, that's my kids, and Moderno is Gary's, so I'm not a part of that. I'm here representing the township. I have no interest here other than that. But we maybe have a Band-Aid that we're working on, because part of the problem is Flag Trail going to the east is in Credit River. So we're floating this out there to see if they can see their way clear. We've got $40,000 on deposit from Steve from way back when. And, maybe we can see, if Moderno can see their way clear to putting a little bit of money in, and maybe Credit River can clean up the gravel and make it so we can pave what's there with 2 inches to get out to the east, that's 3/5 of a mile. We can't bring it down to 8, but if we have a paved way out that gets us to a turn lane and a bypass lane on 27, I think we'd want to encourage that traffic anyway. So we're seeing if we can do that. I hear you, we don't want to wait for Bonnie Tice yet. We can't wait, we don't know when the county wants to close that. So yeah, we're all waiting for something to happen, and nobody's pushing the ball forward. So we're going to see if we can make sense that Credit River would alleviate themselves of gravel maintenance. So maybe they could touch up the gravel, put the crown back in, make sure it all works. Between Gary and what we have on escrow, can we get it paved? Can Stephen Geis get some of that value back out of his lots? Do they sell quicker, and does everybody seem happier? We also talked about Thursday night, when some of your other neighbors came to the meeting, about posting Raven Point Road, no construction traffic, at Flag, but then also at Dorothy, where it comes back into Raven Point, so that if people are on Dorothy Lane, they don't go out through Raven Point. We don't want to barricade it, because then if people go down Raven Point, they're going to go all the way to the end and turn around. And I think once all the construction people understand where this is, at first when you do a new neighborhood, it doesn't show up on Google for a while, so there's going to be lost deliveries that are going to end up down Raven Point at the beginning, but that'll work its way out. By the time we're on the 19th home, they'll have it down. So we'll try to mitigate that as best we can. So I just wanted to clear some of those things up.
Sure, satisfies your, very helpful.
Any other public comments? Sure. Don?
I appreciate the vehemence of your commentary, and I actually want to echo that. Feel free to assess me as well. I don't think I maybe made myself as clear regarding flag trails. That thing is an absolute train wreck. It does have to be fixed. So again, I appreciate your comments and vehemence of it, and I'm completely, on that one. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Any other questions from this board before we close the public hearing? Okay, a motion would be in order to close the public hearing.
Mr. Chairman, I move we close the public hearing.
Second.
Mr. Watson, second by Mr. Robbie, close the public hearing. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And now your wishes on the request for preliminary plat. And now, Buffalo Ridge, third edition, are we gonna make it the new name?
If an application comes in with final plat with that name, then that will be the
Right now,
action on the final plat. Right now, we're approving the preliminary plat.
Madam Chair, based on criteria for approval listed in the staff report, I recommend approval of the preliminary plat of Buffalo Ridge, third edition, consisting of 19 lots and one outlot on 104.42 acres, noting that this recommendation is subject to conditions listed that must be satisfactorily addressed prior to county board consideration, noting that town board has recommended approval.
Second.
Been moved by Mr. Huber, second by Mr. Robbie to approve the request. Any discussion? And are we also gonna note that the township has recommended approval?
I said that. I didn't mention that.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Good luck.
Good luck.
Madam Chair? Yes. Can I just make a comment? It is so helpful when we get someone from the township board here to help us out and give us information we have no other way of getting. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Very much.
We do appreciate it.
We do appreciate it.
I think if we ran this differently, as a public hearing, maybe we can't do it. Public hearing at the township, because we had 2 meetings on it. To get the information, I'll take the input and that are pretty.
Okay, next is our planning manager update.
All right, Madam Chair, so, since our last meeting, the county board did approve upon your recommendation the rezoning of 71.56 acres from A1 to A3. Jeffrey Wick was the applicant, and property owner that was in Fan Creek Township. That is the only item that they've acted on since, our November meeting. Item number 2, tomorrow the county board will be making appointments for the Board of Adjustment Planning Commission. I know we've been in communication with all of you. Gary Hartman is stepping down, and Kent Robbins is being appointed in Gary's place from District 3, that's Commissioner Beard's district. So Kent Robbins will be appointed. He will go through an orientation process with Kent, and he will be seated with you at the January meeting.
Does he live in Shakopee?
He lives in Shakopee.
Okay.
Yep. Ed Robbie is stepping down.
Oh.
Really?
Oh.
And I'll allow Ed to say a few words if he wishes, and then we'll talk about that. So go ahead, I'll turn it over to you, Ed.
If I could just have the floor for a little bit here, Brad, I'd like to, this has been a great board to work with. I, kinda have personal things about, or personal feelings about terms, and, I feel that personally, my term, been on the board for what, 3-some plus years, and I'd like to give someone else an opportunity to work on the board. Again, it was you're great people to work with. I appreciate knowing all of you. Also want to thank the staff, excellent job, in informing us on issues that we need to discuss and vote on. You guys are terrific people. So kudos to all of you, and, Donna mentioned the townships. It's always nice to have township representation here. So, I'm sure I'll miss it, but you'll probably get someone better. Maybe, no. So, thank you very much. It was a pleasure working with all of you.
Well, on behalf of the board, I thought you brought a lot to the table, having been in banking and everything, and financial, and always contributed and asked really good questions, but we will miss you.
you.
Now, whose appointment will?
Okay, so and then Ed will formally recognize you. We traditionally will recognize all people stepping down at a board meeting. We'll let you know when that is, so we can say some formal words and thank you in front of the county board. That might be in January, February, you and Gary. But we do appreciate your work, and we'll say a lot more when that happens.
Right.
So yeah, Ed comes from District One. That's Commissioner Brecky Weckman's district. She has not yet identified anyone. There's a couple of people that I'm talking to, and she's going to be talking to see if we can convince them to make the commitment. I know how much commitment it is. So hopefully we'll get that person on board. I've talked to Ed. We're not positive that we'll have the person by the January meeting. And so Ed's agreed to stick around one more meeting if he has to. And we appreciate that. But, so it's yet to be determined.
Okay.
I might get to the big people chair.
So that's it with appointments. We will be back in our boardroom, I believe, in April.
Oh,
April?
The renovations at the Government Center are on schedule. Staff will be moving back in March to our home there on the 3rd floor of the Government Center East building. The boardroom should be opening up by mid-March. We don't think it will be ready for the March meeting, but we're hoping by April we will be back there, and we certainly do appreciate Spring Lake letting us be in this space. And we'll be here a few more months, but just giving you a heads up.
we're staying here though until then.
Yep. This is a good spot. We might have to consider putting it on a rotation where we're here sometimes and up there sometimes. I haven't talked to staff about that, but we like it here as well. I think it's a lot more convenient to a lot of people that come to these meetings.
Great parking.
Good parking. So yeah, we'll have to set some thought.
I just was at the courthouse the other day dropping off my tab. It looks like the whole new entrance faces south. That's about all I noticed. But you'll give us directions when we finally have.
We will give you directions. Yeah, there's the Atwood is going to be entrance by the large parking lot, kind of kitty corner from the church. And then entrance to the north, actually. Yeah, there'll be an entrance from the south. Where you guys typically came in for a meeting, that will be the same entrance into that. Yep. And then I put a handout together of building permits. A lot of times at the end of the year, we run year-end reports just to see what development activity looked like. We don't have the new lots. That will take a little bit of time, and we'll come to you and we'll look at how many new lots were created compared to previous years. But this is building permit data, and you can see in 2021 the number of new home permits by township, and then the average value of those homes. Now, the numbers look lower this year because about mid-January, Credit River took over building authority and issued their own building permits, and so that's why the numbers look lower. Yesterday or the day before, I heard that there was 23 new home permits issued in the city of Credit River this year, roughly. That was as of maybe a month ago, so that may not be the final number, but around 23. So that would put us at about 86 compared to previous years. So that outpaced last year of 2020, puts us right in line with about 2019, 2017. So it's continues that trend that we've seen kind of the 70s and 80s. The townships that saw most of the activity, probably not a surprise, Cedar Lake, where we really were seeing a lot of plats the last few years. So those plats are now being developed with home sites or homes. Helena, 13. New Market was 16. Here in Spring Lake, we had 8. And then there's a couple of townships that did not see any new homes, and 2 or 3 that saw 1 new home. So the eastern part of the county continues to be the growth center. That's all I have for updates, but I'll stand for any questions.
And, yeah, Brad, I was just wondering, do you ever see the housing permits going up like it was back in early 2000s? We were up at 200. Now we've been bouncing around under 100.
Right. I don't see it, I don't see that that day will ever come, but maybe we have someone here that could see that.
Catching up, I think, Commissioner, as we have more lots available, because there was a long time when nothing got developed.
Yeah.
Slowdown happened, and everything that was selling was kind of the leftover ones that weren't.
The 07 recession and
Yeah.
that, yeah.
That didn't really, I think one of the first developments we did was down in Newmarket, Harvest Meadows, and it was really hard to get the appraisals to work out for the back of it. The lots they were pulling, lots that nobody wanted, and they were, on the back for 3 years with a carry time, so they just put it on. Now we're catching up to it.
Okay.
It's getting better. Spring Lake Township is getting more development. Credit River is doing more development. We have more plats coming in spring. Stuff. So that part's all getting better. Where I don't think it's ever gonna go back to where it was is the packages now have all gotten so expensive.
Okay.
If you wanna live in the country on acreage, you're gonna be around $1 million. And a little bit under, but most times with what you want, they're $1 million around. It's working right now because interest rates are in the twos.
Yeah.
My fear is when interest rates go back to 4, who's buying these?
Exactly. Is Spring Lake Township all 2.5 acres?
Now,
Not the whole thing.
We go all the way beyond, and then out past that, and it's not, but then that's that urban reserve.
Yep, 1 for 10 cluster out along the 13 corridor.
About 2/3 of Spring Lake is 2.5?
I would say 2/3, yeah.
And Newmarket is about a quarter?
Yeah, the northern half is 2.5 acres, the southern half is maybe 1/40.
Cedar Lake did away with it, now it's 1%.
I know. I think that makes our county unique, the 2.5 acres. I don't think Carver does that at all.
The only other place you can do this is way over by Lake Elmo.
Okay, Lake Elmo.
And that's what's hard from our end, builder and sales side. You're not hearing about building on 2.5 acres. Aren't necessarily coming out looking for it. And when the market dropped off real bad, before it dropped off real great, Foxway, we had a bunch of builders out here all doing salespeople and real people all talking about it. So people were exposed to the dream of living in the country. Slowdown happened, we lost all those builders, we lost all those models. People stopped talking about the dream of living on acres. So it's taken a while to reboot it, but now we got builders out here putting up models, we got freight homes. As we keep talking about it, and realtors talk about it, title companies talk about it, people will see that they can have the 2.5 acre dream. You can't do it in Dakota County, can't do it in Carver County.
Yeah.
So we're unique in that.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting at, and I think there's a certain market for that type of housing for 2.5 acres, and it's big enough for septic and all that, it still works. Okay.
Anything else? We did bring some pop and cookies to celebrate the holidays just a little bit, so stick around. Talk to Ed more, hear what Ed's gonna do after this, probably got a few things lined up. But that's all I have.
Okay, is there a motion to adjourn?
So, second.
Okay, motion